Well, we know that Iran watches cable news, and they didn't believe Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, either, when earlier today he got into it with members of the Senate, including Cory Booker, and said, "No, there's no war. We're not at war with Iran." And Cory Booker had to drag Marco Rubio back to reality and said, "We are." And then missiles started flying all over from America, hitting the island that Iran uses to control the Strait of Hormuz, Iran hitting Saudi Arabia and Bahrain. Yeah, we're at war, folks. This whole fake counter that Donald Trump has used, the war lasted 38 days. Nobody in their right mind believes that war has ever ended, and Donald Trump's erratic mental decline on full display. I don't care how many times he takes a test that makes him distinguish and identify a rhinoceros and a camel, and then give his name and date of date of the test, and then subtract 7 from 100, the amount of 100 a number of times. I mean, are you kidding me? These are baseline distinguishing between vertebrae and invertebrate. This is not this is not a test to see if the guy's got he's got all of his marbles to run the presidency. And even those in his administration that hold a doctor's license, like Dr. Oz, don't know what to make of these multiple dementia tests. I have my own version here on the intersection of dementia tests. Do you appoint somebody who's got absolutely no experience in the intelligence community to be the director of national intelligence? And if you do, you might have dementia, or at least you're going down the drain mentally. Do you announce that there's no war with Iran at the very moment that Iran sends ballistic missiles your way? You might have dementia. I mean, it's just totally crazy. I'm glad you're here. So much to talk about on the intersection podcast here on the Midas Touch Network. I want to talk about Iran. I want to talk about Bill Pulte, the Nepo baby, heir to the Pulte construction fortune, who's, has no calluses on his hands. He's been running as a mini Trumper, Donald Trump's Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac mortgage liquidity entities, which is where he should stay and get out of voter fraud issues, get out of making referrals to the Department of Justice, to Ed Martin when he was there, and to others to try to bring down Lisa Cook on the Federal Reserve, or Letitia James, or Adam Schiff, or anybody else. And now Donald Trump believes so little in the national security of you and me and of Americans that he's going to have Bill Pulte, with no national intelligence experience whatsoever, not only take the job, but do his day job at Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac at the same time. This is a directorate formed after 9/11. 17 intelligence agencies, including the CIA, report to it. And I thought, and you heard me say it on the intersection, maybe Trump, in reshuffling the deck of his cabinet, like reshuffling the lounge chairs on the Titanic, would take the opportunity to level up and improve. Tulsi Gabbard, obviously not fit, resigns in disgrace. Level up, get somebody from the national intelligence community that can't be faulted. Nope, another political hack with no experience that Donald Trump's going to keep on a. I feel like I'm watching the NBA developmental league on 10-day contracts until the midterms, never going up for full confirmation, because all he wants them to do is go after his political enemies and targets, do it from the perch now as the director of national intelligence, help him convince the American people that there's a voter fraud problem in America, and try to scare the crap out of Democrats from voting. That is what Bill Pulte's new job is, masquerading as the director of national intelligence. And it just shows you how little Donald Trump cares about it. Yet, he will claim to be the national security president, that everything is a national emergency, everything is a national security issue, in order to expand his powers, stretch them out to its outer boundaries, to give him the most power ever. Everything's national security. I want to build a ballroom, national security. I want to deport and capture people and send them off to a jail without any due process, national security. We're at war with Venezuela. We're at war with the American people, apparently, because that was the takeaway for the people around Donald Trump from the immunity decision by the Supreme Court. Call everything national security and everything a war, and put the president on a war footing, and then he can't be challenged to the courts, although that has not worked for him. And in 19 months, the only stakeholder that matters in America, the voter, the Americans, have all rejected Donald Trump. Have you seen, other than Jimmy Carter towards the end, have you seen a president with worse poll numbers, historically worse poll numbers, like with a 2 in the front, a 2 handle, as we like to say? No. But look at the people he's putting in. It's just mind-boggling. Iran, we'll talk about. Bill Pulte, we'll talk about. I'll connect it to Jay Powell, who's still kicking on the Federal Reserve, just accepted the award from the Kennedy family, the real Kennedy Center, the Kennedy Family Profile and Courage Award. I think he's the first not elected official to ever get the award for standing up to Donald Trump and the independence of the Federal Reserve. Lots of testimony today on Capitol Hill. Thank God Midas opened a Washington bureau and put Scott McFarlane and others Scott McFarlane in charge of it, and has people running around reporting, because just today alone, Mark Wayne Mullen, remember him, the plumber, literally plumber, who is now head of Department of Homeland Security. Yet another example of Donald Trump having an opportunity to level up when Kristi Noem and her husband got fired. I always have to throw him in. And go get somebody with real experience. Every state has somebody that has like the counterpart job, the analogous job to the Department of Homeland Security. Go get them. At least we'd be like, well, all right, they ran this kind of department in Texas or this or that. Mark Wayne Mullen. And today took a page out of the Kristi Noem Donald Trump book and told senators, I don't believe I have to follow the law. I don't believe, if I agree with the judge's order, I'll follow it. But, if they're political, then I can reject it. Oh, okay. I think the phrase I'm thinking of is at your own risk, because federal judges are fed up. They put the Fed in fed up. And I just interviewed today one of our favorites, J. Michael Ludick, former appellate judge for the Fourth Circuit, who saved this country by giving Mike Pence a backbone and making him certify the election for Joe Biden, and he had an extraordinary, I'm going to leave you on your edge of your seat for this one. He had an extraordinary statement that he made today. He started with, Michael, I don't usually make news when I interview with you. And I was like, I leaned in, and then he did. Wait till you hear what he thinks is now the case that we will write down this week and today in history books. I think you'll be fascinated by Judge Ludick's analysis. And then we've got, we're coming off, and I did a video on it, you could see on Midas and on Legal AF, about, I don't know, worst week in the history of the Department of Justice ever. 5 losses, 0 for 5 for Todd Blanche, and not just like minor, like, well, there's this picayune procedural issue that the Department of Justice, it was a close call, but no, we're talking about findings of vindictive prosecution by federal judges for the first time in this administration, but certainly not the last. A judge reopening a case in Miami, Judge Williams, in order for Donald Trump himself, not as president, but in his private life, to tell her whether he and his lawyers committed a fraud on the court. Okay? And I've got a great interview, talk about programming note, going up tomorrow at 9:30 Eastern time on Legal AF YouTube channel, where I interview Michael Luttig, who led the charge of 35 former federal judges, appellate and trial court, who stepped up and wrote a motion that implored Judge Williams to reopen the case and find fraud by Donald Trump in the way he handled his IRS case, which led to the weaponization fund case and the little known, talk about the tail wagging the dog, that little known, little discussed amended settlement agreement that Todd Blanche tried to enter with himself because there was no other party involved, giving Donald Trump and his family tax immunity, absolution from tax and audit liability for like 16 years. And that's stuck in the judge's craw and Judge Luttig's craw. He band together with 35, and he has a theory about who can save us, among, besides Legal AF and me and the brothers on Midas, but like who can really save our rule of law at this moment. He thinks there's one group that can. Again, you'll be fascinated by what he says. Then I want to talk about a ruling that just came out yesterday by Judge Randy Moss, not that one, for those that are football fans. Judge Randolph Moss wrote a decision that will help and strengthen the hand of James Comey, the former FBI director, who's fighting to have yet a second indictment against him dismissed for vindictive prosecution, and that his First Amendment rights are being violated because he's being prosecuted by Todd Blanche, Donald Trump, because he saw seashells arrayed on a beach that said 8647. That became an issue in a First Amendment lawsuit, and the ruling is reverberating right into James Comey's hands. And I know his lawyers, and I know that they're high-fiving each other over Randy Moss's new ruling, which we will go over. And then I want to prepare you for a couple of things, right? I want to manage expectations and prepare you. We're going to be getting some Supreme Court rulings this week. And for sure, the calendar is already turned to June. Hard to believe. Seems like it was just February. It's turning to June, and we've got maybe 10 days left on the clock, maybe 12, before the Supreme Court goes on hiatus for the summer, except for those pesky little shadow dockets that they love now under the last two summers with Trump, and they come back to handle things on a short track. They've already got things that they need to decide on a short track, like the Alabama maps, which they took in full briefing on Monday about whether those maps are really so racist. Even the Supreme Court, MAGA 6, recognized it as racist. But we got other rulings that we're waiting on. Birthright citizenship, first among them. Whether we can vote by mail the way we've always been accustomed to, first among them or second among them. Whether Lisa Cook gets to keep her job on the Federal Reserve, whether Donald Trump gets to grab hold of the Federal Reserve and choke it to death. That's also, we're waiting on that. While Trump continues to try to get out from under the $100 million running with interest total judgments held by E. Jean Carroll, his sex abuse victim. And now he's trying to get the Supreme Court to bail him out of the whole thing. I'll tell you more about that. And then last programming note, this Friday on Legal AF YouTube channel, under the live tab, we will be running the oral argument related to the ballroom at the appellate court level, the DC appellate court, federal appellate court, 3-judge panel. One of them is a Trumper. The other two aren't. And we've got Donald Trump doing some crazy shit. That's a legal term. Right before it, that freaked out his lawyers, and they had to try to wallpaper over the fact that Donald Trump revealed national secrets in bragging about the drone depot that was being built on top of the not yet built ballroom. And we learned a lot more things because they had to catalog all of the aspects of the security features of the ballroom for our enemies. Like, Iran is busy bombing us right now. You don't think they want to see that catalog, And to cover up for Donald Trump's slip into dementia, the lawyers had to say, well, the president had left with no choice but to show what AI generated photos of the actual security apparatus at the White House. Uneffing believable. I'm so glad you're here. We got a raucous crowd. Is that the right word for it? We got a raucous crowd tonight. My team is busy sending me all sorts of. Oh, there's me. See, you know it's live. Let me go to some questions before I get and kick it off with Iran. Let's see. Donna Janofsky says, since the slush fund was nixed, not quite. How about the immunity for? Yes. How about the immunity for him being investigated? Very good question. I'm going to get there. That's my concern, that everybody's looking at the dog, but the tail that wags the dog is Donald Trump wants out from over $100 million or more of tax exposure. So Blanche, who we'll see later, says the fund is dead, which, by the way, does not get him out from under the problem with Judge Williams and the fraud case and the fraud finding. We'll get to that in a minute. Very good question, though. If Trump is found to have dementia, says Lynn Denny, sorry, can we undo everything he's done? Like, that's if he was found to have been like walking pneumonia, walking dementia, or walking incapacitation under the 25th Amendment, unfortunately, unless and until he's taken out 86th by impeachment or resigns in disgrace, I'll take either one at this point. No, the things that he's doing now are going to be on the books. And, the reason he's going after Biden for it is to destroy Biden's legacy, the Democratic legacy, undermine all of the icons of the Democratic Party, try to leave the Democrats less enthusiastic about their party to dampen voter turnout. Let's call it out for what it is, shall we? Once you acknowledge the disease and what they're doing to you and the gaslighting, then you can avoid it and get better. That's the way we roll here. What's the holdup with Dems impeaching Trump? They don't have the votes. It's coming. It's coming. You need 216 to run the House, and they don't have 216. They've got 209, 210, 211. Depends on the day. Depends who's in or out. It depends on special elections. But look, as soon as November happens and the Democrats get 240, 250, let the impeachment games begin. The question is how does the Democrats get the Senate? And how do you get, enough in the Senate to remove Trump? You got to get to 60. It's hard. It's hard. Not impossible, but it's hard. And Vicky wants the impeachment process explained. Okay. You need you need more than the number I just said, but you can get 2/3. You need 2/3 of the House and 2/3. Make sure I got that right. Is it majority in the House and 2/3 in the Senate? Let me double check my math before I go. I want to be expert. Give me a minute. I'll get my people on it, and today I will talk about it. It's either 2/3, or it's majority. Majority 2/3. I know it's 2/3 in the Senate. We'll get back to you, but it's a very good question. I do want to explain the impeachment process. All right, let's go to Iran. Marco Rubio trots down, and he is filleted. Oh, good. So my people tell me my initial instinct was right. Simple majority in the House for the impeachment process. So we just got to get the majority. So it's the number I said before, 216. And then you need 2/3 in the Senate to remove. There you go. And that's it. So impeachment is the equivalent of indictment, and Senate vote is the equivalent, the conviction is the equivalent of a conviction. And that's the way that works. Iran. Marco Rubio was filleted to within an inch of his life today, all by the Democrats, about all the bullshit that he's been spoon feeding to the oversight committee. He's not giving them information to allow them to do their job. He's turning things over late or not at all, or he's mischaracterizing the progress of things that are happening in Venezuela or Cuba, primarily in Iran. And so I joked as we opened tonight that I think Iran watches cable news because they were like, we're not at war. And then Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, U.S. bases get hit in both. And some nasty social media posting by the Iranian Republican Guard, or the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. Sorry. I'm not going to read their statement, but there it is. Let's show, though, earlier in the day, before the missiles were flying, here's your Secretary of State and mine, Marco Rubio, about whether we're at war with Iran.
Of billions of dollars of reconstruction costs just to get to where they were 6 months ago.
Mr. Rubio, you keep telling us how we're winning this war. The president keeps saying,
well, the war is over.
Completely annihilated. The war is not over. And yet the American people see how we're losing at the pump and with their costs, and yet this thing still hasn't been resolved. Every day he tweets out, oh, we've obliterated them, we've annihilated them, they're going to surrender. But yet we still find ourselves spending billions of dollars a week
Senator
on
Booker,
war abroad.
You've gone way over. And
It would be nice if we had hearings where people
Thank
had
you,
to be held
Senator
accountable.
Booker. Senator Scott.
Well, we don't have hearings, so we'll cut that guy off. And then right on cue, we've got missiles flying between the United States and Iran, because the war is not over, because it started at the end of February and we're now in June, and the war is not over. And he has not gotten authorization from Congress. And you're watching a limp noodle, do nothing Congress, led by Mike Johnson, who has to be run out on a rail at the midterms. I think we all agree to that. And get adults in the room, led by the Democrats, to have the gavel. You see that gavel that guy banged on the table? The Democrats need to hold the gavel. That's what literally it means. And then we're holding hearings, and we're doing real oversight, and we're finding people in contempt. We may not have a Department of Justice after the midterms that we can count on. That's obvious, but we will. We will in 2028. Statute of limitations is very long. And if Todd Blanche, Marco Rubio, and others who have testified think they're going to, and Pam Bondi, they think they're going to avoid the long arm of the law, they're not, because there's 5-year statute of limitations on all these things, and that'll be well within the next administration, which is another reason you need to vote for the other party at the midterms and beyond. So we have that coming on onto the show tonight. And then I want to turn to Bill Pulte, another breaking news story, head scratcher coming out of the White House today. Bill Pulte, who you may know is a guy that likes really long, he's really short, and he likes really long ties like Donald Trump. He's the Nepo baby son of the Pulte family that like built half of the South. You know, many single family homes are built by Pulte. Zero experience. He wasn't even in like the intelligence unit of the military. He was never in the military. Yeah. So Trump, because Pulte has this big social media following and has been trying to run for whoever knows what, put him into the cabinet or put him into the administration to run Freddie Mae and Fannie Mac, which sort of made sense because at least he's been involved with construction and real estate loans. So maybe he knows something about mortgages. I don't know. So that's what he's been doing. And all of a sudden, right on cue, whenever Donald Trump needed a pit bull to go after one of his targets, he used Bill Pulte, who illegally disclosed private mortgage information to the public, which he cut and pasted, which was often false, to go after Lisa Cook on the Federal Reserve for mortgage fraud allegations, Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, Adam Schiff, the senator from California, and others. And it would be like this conspiratorial 3-step process. Bill Pulte would post something on social media, pulling a page from the files that he has access to, showing two signatures on 2 different mortgages next to each other. And then he would at the same time send a criminal referral to Pam Bondi or to then Ed Martin of the Weaponization Committee, who would open a criminal referral, and then they would assign it to some inexperienced loser of a prosecutor like Lindsay Halligan to go after all these people, or none of these people. We're 19 months in. I don't want to knock on wood. Adam Schiff's not indicted. They still can't get Letitia James, God love her. And Lisa Cook, we're waiting any minute now for the United States Supreme Court to do what I think they're going to do, which is to say, no, you can't take away a 13-year seat on the Federal Reserve because Bill Pulte posted on social media and you didn't, quote unquote, respond to it. No, that's not due process. And I mean, seriously. And I think we're going to get that ruling any minute now. So, but I think to bolster Bill Pulte, because he's about to lose this Lisa Cook case. So they wanted to, I think, insulate him from looking foolish. And then Donald Trump has a trusted sidekick, wingman, to do all the crap that Tulsi Gabbard looked very uncomfortable doing. Like go to Fulton County and all the 19 blue states or 23 blue states and hang around polling places and try to get things from the 2020 election, which is already beyond the statute of limitations, and use our what's supposed to be outward-facing intelligence community, right? The CIA is not supposed to be spying on Americans and the other intelligence community. That they're supposed to be homeland protecting, outward-facing, not inward-facing. That's why they got a lot of explaining to do when Tulsi Gabbard ended up hanging around trying to support voter integrity. They're going to use this guy to do the exact same thing, and he's more than willing to do it. They're going to use him to go after Donald Trump's political enemies, even though he's not supposed to be doing that as the head of the National Intelligence Directorate, and use him to try to suppress the vote and scare people out of voting. That's what his job is from now until November. I don't know what his actual job description says, but that's his job. That's his job. There's no doubt about it. And so I had to wake up to that, which I think, again, forget the Montreal Comprehensive Assessment Test, the MOCA test, about I passed it 30 out of 30. I'm qualified. 30 out of 30 just means you have, some brain, some cerebral cortex attached to your spine. That's all that means. It's not a aptitude test. It's not Mensa. It's not an IQ test. I should be president. I passed this test. Okay. When you can't distinguish a camel from a rhinoceros, then we'll get back to me, and having 4 dementia tests in 19 months and 4 annual physicals in 19 months it does not mean you're well. As people know, my late mother suffered from dementia. She took 1 dementia test her entire life. It confirmed she had it. And that was it, folks. You don't keep taking it. But he likes taking it. It's like the kid, as people know, I have a 2-year-old. She's going to be 2 in 2 weeks and 3 weeks. It's like when you have that play school car set that you put in the car next to daddy and mommy that has the steering wheel and the shifter and a horn, and you plug it and they think they're driving the car with you. Yeah. That they keep giving him the test because he keeps asking for it. Like my daughter asks for ice cream every day. But somebody has to say, no, Mr. President, you don't need the test again. Where's Carolyn Levette been? Somebody just asked. She just had a baby. I don't know. Does that answer the question? I think so. So when we come back, I'm so glad everybody's here. I'm all pumped up. I love the intersection. I love our audience. I love the vibrancy of our audience, and so many different ways to support what we do on the intersection. I've got a team of people that help us, help us win the Webby Award. Where's the Webby Award? Webby Award, along with your help. And you can, I do, 40 videos a week, something like that. And they're split between the Midas Touch Network, where you are now, and Legal AF YouTube channel, which I do in collaboration with the brothers and Midas Touch Network. So you can watch that there. I do 4 videos to start the day on Legal AF YouTube channel. And by the way, if we didn't need the help with subscribers, I assure you, I would not ask you to subscribe. But we could use some subscribers over there. We're not done with our mission, and we got to get strong and robust for the midterm. So come over there, and I think you'll enjoy the 12 fresh videos that we do every day. And then Legal AF has a Substack, where I do a live every day. and you can chat with me in the live, which is sort of fun. We have a whole different audience there. Some people in the chat tonight, if you go to my lives, if you attend my lives, put a thumbs up so I know you're in there. And then we've got those are two ways. And then this is a podcast, and it's on audio. You can pick us up on Apple and Spotify. Here, we're trying to continue to grow this audience and stay in the top 50 or so of all YouTube podcasts. And that's so many of the fundamental ways when people say, I like watching you, I like everything you do, what can we do to help? That keeps us on the air, no doubt. And then we've got sponsors that I've curated with Jordy Mycelis, and we're going to take a break for them right now. This summer, I'm trying to spend less time dealing with financial paperwork and more time actually enjoying long days with family and friends. And one thing I wanted to finally check off my to-do list was life insurance. That's why I like Policy Genius. Policy Genius is not an insurance company. They're a marketplace that helps people find and buy insurance. Instead of spending hours searching on your own, Policy Genius lets you compare quotes from some of America's top insurers side by side for free. Their licensed team helps you get what you need fast, answers your questions, handles the paperwork, and helps you find coverage amounts, prices, and terms without the guesswork. What stands out to me is how easy they make protecting your loved ones and planning for the future. It turns getting life insurance into a smart summer win instead of another chore, and gives you real peace of mind while you enjoy your summer. With Policy Genius, you can see if you can find 20-year life insurance policies starting at just $276 a year for $1 million in coverage. Head to policygenius.com/truth to compare life insurance quotes from top companies and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/truth. You've got weight loss goals, but hitting them is another story. Enter Weight Loss by Hims. It's designed to support you in losing the weight and keeping it off, and Hims now offers access to an affordable range of FDA-approved GLP-1 medications, including the Wegovy pill and the Wegovy pen. With Wegovy at Hims, lose up to 20% or more of your body weight when combined with diet and exercise. It helps you regulate your appetite and eat less, so success is within reach. Plus, Wegovy is the first ever GLP-1 pill for weight loss, so there are no needles needed. Through Hims, everything happens online. You'll connect with a licensed provider who will determine if treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your medication is delivered right to your door. No insurance necessary, and it doesn't stop there. Hims makes hitting your goals seamless by offering access to 24/7 messaging with your care team and an in-app lifestyle and nutrition support, like recipes, meal plans, fitness videos, sleep content, and more. Ready to reach your goals? Visit hims.com/truth to get a personalized, affordable plan that gets you. That's HIMS.com/truth, hims.com/truth. Weight Loss by Hims is not available in all 50 states. Wegovy is the registered trademark of Novo Nordisk AS. To get started and learn more, including important safety information, Wegovy clinical study information, and restrictions, visit hims.com. And we are back together on the intersection. So Bill Pulte should not make you feel more secure because he'll be part-time running the Directorate of the National Intelligence Community with 17 agencies reporting to him. It just shows you that Donald Trump doesn't care about you and me at all. He just wants to corrupt the entire apparatus of the administration and bend it to his will to make as much money as possible and to go after as many targets as possible. That's all he cares about. And what happens to you and me to keep us safe, nothing that Donald Trump has done has kept us safe. Destroying global relationships, destroying the global economy, attacking our allies, effectively pulling out of NATO. Last week, they announced they're going to draw down on weapons that they've contributed to NATO. Pete Hegseth, who's busy, not promoting black and brown people and women to the general position or promoting them. We're not going to give you any more of this advanced weaponry. Yeah. Why would we do that? Oh, I don't know, because we can't be Donald Trump can't even win an Iran war. I mean, is there any doubt now that he cannot leading this country be the leader of the free world. He can't be the world's policeman. God help us. You've got, Kiev being bombed on his watch, another 20 people dead, blood on Donald Trump's hands, China stronger, Iran standing strong, 3.5 years into Russia, Ukraine. And what do we have to show for it? So Donald Trump's made us less safe economically, national security wise. He's destroyed diplomacy. Who trusts little Marco Rubio to do what? Donald Trump doesn't even trust him. He sent J.D. Vance to go resolve some of these matters. He sent his son-in-law. Marco Rubio seemed to be last on the list. And no, who's bought that Donald Trump has settled 9 worldwide conflicts? Are you shitting me? Pardon me. We're on YouTube, right? So now, with all the people that are not worth our time, except we have to pay attention to them, I wanted to remind us of a hero, somebody that's still, to this moment, standing strong to protect the independence of the Federal Reserve, the 113-year-old institution that keeps the American economy tethered to planet Earth. It's a guy named Jay Powell, slight of build, modest of comportment, but he's a bigger superpower and has more gravitas and more authority in his pinky fingernail than Donald Trump ever had in his entire body. And there's a reason, and if you listen to this clip, you'll know why. There's a reason that Jay Powell bucked tradition and did not step down from the Federal Reserve Board of Governors when his chairmanship was up. See, his seat lasts till 2028, but his chairmanship was up on May 15th. It was like a 12 or 13 year term. And there's a reason, because Donald Trump effectively announced that if Jay Powell stepped off, he was going to appoint somebody, gain control of the Federal Reserve majority, and take control of interest rates and start shooting $250 bills with his face on it out of a fire hose. That's an image. And God help us with prices, inflation, the national debt. Wow. This is what happens when a president is a short-termer and the nation has a longer time horizon. He doesn't care about the fundamentals of the economy and what it means for you and me 2 years from now, 5 years from now, when you reach retirement age, when your children go to school. He doesn't care about that. The guy that just traded $750 million worth of stock trades in companies that he is doing business with or are part of the military industrial complex does not care about you and me. Jay Powell does. And here he's given by the Kennedys. I think this is a double shiv to Donald Trump. One, it's the Kennedy family. Like, the whole Kennedy Center thing that's going on right now, where the Judge Cooper in 94 pages, it says, take the name down. It's a desecration of the living memory of JFK. So JFK's family and his grandson, Schlossberg, who's running for Congress, one of my favorite Kennedys, Caroline Kennedy, former ambassador Caroline Kennedy, gave, among other people, Jay Powell an award, Profile in Courage Award. I think he's the first not elected official to ever get it. And I just want to play a clip to show you how artfully and diplomatically, yet powerfully, Jay Powell takes down Donald Trump and explains why he's not going anywhere. Play the clip.
Americans, we are motivated by the belief that freedom and democracy greatly enhance human fulfillment. The work to preserve and strengthen our own democracy can be noisy, frustrating at times, and embattled. Partisan political differences are normal, indeed essential, in a thriving democracy. But we ought to be united in our commitment to the higher principles that define our nation. Chief among them is respect for the rule of law. As John Adams of Massachusetts wrote, ours is a government of laws not of men. Our public institutions carry us forward through change. These institutions embody our commitment to freedom, democracy, and service of the public good. The philosopher Edmund Burke warned that democratic institutions take much time, effort, and patience to build, but can be torn down all too quickly. It is essential that we preserve what is good in our institutions, even as we strive to improve them. While we will have political differences, at the end of the day, we all love this wonderful country and want what is best for it and for all of our fellow Americans.
That's the guy you want in charge of something in the administration, right? He's not going anywhere until 2028. He's going to effectively block Donald Trump from gaining the majority on the Federal Reserve, assuming that the Supreme Court doesn't kick off Lisa Cook in the next day or so, which I don't think they're going to. And that's going to leave Donald Trump twisting in the wind about controlling the Fed. If he had just played nice and not attacked Jay Powell and called him a criminal for how he was overseeing the Federal Reserve remodeling program, I assure you that Jay Powell would have left to go into retirement and let Donald Trump take it over. But when you spend your entirety of your time in office bashing the Federal Reserve chair and calling him a crook and saying that the president has a role and should be able to take over monetary policy run by the Fed, you're not going to get a guy like that to leave. Thank God. I'm glad he got that award. That was a very well-timed award by the Kennedy Foundation and the Profile of Courage group there, which I really do appreciate. I've got another great American I want to talk about next. So I'm going to put two things together. You got people testifying today in the Senate and the House, like Markwayne Mullin and Todd Blanche and Marco Rubio. This is the jam, the juice for Midas and for Legal AF, right? I look at the schedule during the week. I'm like, who's testifying? Is it closed door or is it not? And then we start getting clips and watching it for ourselves. And whether it's Ben or me or somebody else, we're on it. We're on it relatively quickly throughout the day. If you could see my text chain, I'm just getting, this clip, this clip, this clip, this clip. And then I got to curate it, right? I can't cover everything. I got to figure out which ones that I enjoy. So that you'll enjoy. So Markwayne Mullin steps into it right away and says he's not going to comply with all federal and other court orders. He's not going to commit to it. He's going to pick and choose. Apparently only the ones he likes. If he thinks they're too political, my opinion's as good as the person in the black robes. Boy, is he in for a shock. Boy, is he in for a surprise. Kristi Noem was this close to being found in criminal contempt by Chief Judge in D.C., Jeb Boasberg. I mean, for those that are listening and can't see me, my fingers are very close together, this close. And also, ICE officials in Minnesota were very close. Trump's about to get hit with, I think, a fraud charge on the court down in Miami. You don't want to F with the federal courts, right? Because to summarize Judge Ludig's interview, which you'll see tomorrow with me at 9:30 Eastern time on Legal AF channel, the federal judges are fed up and they are fighting back. So you've got that. And then Todd Blanche, as I'm interviewing Judge Ludig about the case in Miami, presided over by Judge Williams, a judge that I know well, in which it's the same case. 93 members of Congress sent in a brief imploring her not to close the case of Trump versus the IRS because it was phony and do fact-finding around it. She closed it anyway, but then 35 federal judges, former, bound together, led by Michael Ludig, and filed their, not an amicus brief, not a front of the court brief, a motion. Aha, big difference. A motion under Rule 60 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, which allows non-parties to go to court and ask the judge to inquire as to whether there's been a fraud on the court, because you can't count on the parties, they're in on the fraud. So you need a stranger, a drive-by, to do it, and these judges have done it. Now, they've done it a number of times. Ludig is the leader of a group of 200 former federal judges, and they mix and match on the filing. Sometimes they file a brief with the United States Supreme Court. They've done that half a dozen times. Sometimes that has 150 names, 200 names, or they'll file an amicus, a friend of the court brief here or over there. See, the way it works for those that are not following exactly, the parties generally are the ones that get to file motions and briefs, memoranda, and affidavits and things to support the record. But when there's a hearing or a decision that needs to be made, people can move to intervene and be recognized as friends of the court. We call them amici, and they can file amicus briefs. And sometimes the judge allows it and reads them all. You know, I've seen the Supreme Court cite to friends of the court brief better than they cited to the parties brief. They thought the arguments in the friends brief was better because it's usually like the leading constitutional scholars in America or former federal judges or, 200 members of the intelligence community or the national security community, all, from 5 different administrations, like stuff like that. That's the friend of the court process. So Judge Williams got a motion from these 35 judges. And as I'm interviewing Luttig about this moment in time when these 35 came together, Blanche is being cross-examined about the weaponization fund, and he conveniently leaves out something that's really important. I want to start with Blanche, and I want one bit of background that gets left out by mainstream media. When Blanche was last before these committees on the 18th of May, he did not announce that he had in the works the settlement with the Internal Revenue Service that he was the midwife for, this $1.776 billion fund. When he came out of the hearings on the 19th, he announced it. So he knew it was in the works, but he kept them in the dark. But now, of course, it's all out. It's all out there. So he had to answer for it. Let's play Blanche, and then I'm going to talk about Judge Luttig. Play it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Attorney General, I wanted to ask a few questions about the anti-weaponization fund. We know that the department has agreed to pause this effort until at least June 12th. I wanted to ask what your plans were for the fund after June 12th.
So thank you. So look, we're not moving forward with the fund. You're right that there's a date that in the case in the Eastern District of Virginia in June, but we are not moving forward with the fund, period. The reasons for the fund is something that President Trump talked about for a long time, which is the fact that there were a lot of people in this country who had their government weaponized against them. The reasons for the fund, I think, it remain as important as they were before, but we are not moving forward with the fund.
Oh, not moving forward ever?
Correct.
Oh, there's no more fund then?
Well, to the extent there was a fund, and remember the fund wasn't set up yet. There were no commissioners named. There was no claimants brought anything in front of. There was no claims made yet. So yes, we're not moving forward with the fund.
You and associate.
I love Grace Meng, Representative Meng. Oh, so you're not moving forward with the fund then. Now, she didn't ask the next question, which is, what about the amendment to the settlement agreement you try to enter into with yourself, giving Donald Trump and his family complete exoneration for tax and audit liability for 16 years? What about that? I don't know why that question never gets asked. There's going to be new lawsuits about that because Trump wants us to chase that shiny object of the dead on arrival weaponization fund, but doesn't want to talk about the other part of it. But we're not out of the woods yet with Blanche. So when I had that running while I was doing the interview, I had the opportunity to talk to Luttig about it. He said 2 things. One, I'll play you, and one I'll tell you. One, he said there is no group better suited than former federal judges to come to the rescue of the rule of law and make an impact in the courts by doing what they're doing, intervening, filing. He's nothing against elected officials and nothing against scholars and all of it, but it's got to be the federal judges. And he has yoked them together in a way that would, I can't tell you about it, but in a way that would make you sleep better at night, knowing that they're on the case, so to speak. Here's Judge Luttig with his breaking news that he did, during my interview. Let's play it.
I don't come on your show to make news, as you know, but today, as of today, for the first time, I'm prepared to say that Donald Trump has lost his war on the federal judiciary, the Constitution, and the rule of law in America.
I mean, I don't want to put a too fine a point on it, but he just said if we look back on June 2nd, it will be declared that Donald Trump's war, what he thought was a successful war against the federal judiciary, is now over. And he doesn't, he's not a guy that's prone to hyperbole, Judge Ludick. And what he's talking about in that one very elegant, pithy statement is that the worm is turned against Donald Trump, that federal judges have figured him out and have decided that they don't believe or trust the Department of Justice, that they themselves are corrupt, that they don't believe Todd Blanche. I mean, he might be able to razzle dazzle and bamboozle like it's we're watching some road show for Chicago, is somebody in the House or the Senate, although that's getting increasingly hard to do. But he's not going to be able to do it in the wood panel, leather chairs of a federal courtroom. That's why they didn't appear. That's why Todd Blanche chickened out and didn't appear in front of Judge Crenshaw last, a couple of months ago, and to convince the judge that the Department of Justice was not guilty of vindictive prosecution of Kilmer Abrego Garcia. I mean, he was the only person that had to testify, and Todd Blanche, said pass because he doesn't want to testify, because he doesn't want to be like one day have a perjury problem. It's obvious. When the former Attorney General of the United States refuses to be sworn in and put her hand on a Bible, so to speak, you're in for a ride. So what Ludick is trying to say is that he's confident, and he speaks to sitting federal judges regularly, and he has their pulse, that they are prepared to defend the rule of law and to wait out Donald Trump, who they see as a short-termer, and they've already kind of checked the box. The Department of Justice can never be trusted while it's being run by Donald Trump. And that we will be seeing better and better benefits. Yeah, the Supreme Court, we still have a problem. By the way, if you want to ask me questions, I got a lineup of questions I'm going to answer in a moment. Now's the time. Put it in the chat, and because we are live, as we say. But I think you'll be fascinated. I got a half-an-hour interview tomorrow that's going to go up on Legal AF YouTube channel. So let me turn to the 86-47 ruling and the ballroom oral argument that's scheduled for this week. First, let me answer some questions. Let's see. Let me start from the bottom. Dania Calicchio Cloud asked, Popok, do you personally believe the midterms will be a free and fair election? I do. I have a lot of confidence in the Democrats and Democratic causes and public interest groups and attorneys general and former federal judges who are on this like you would not believe. And so, from the moment their head gets off the pillow to the moment they go to bed at night and they're brushing their teeth, they think about this and they tabletop exercise it, like it's a disaster. What happens if there's a hurricane and a tornado and a nuclear bomb all in the same day? They're doing that already, and they're ready, and they have the lawsuits ready to go. That's why we have 2,000 lawsuits already against the Trump administration and 90% wins. I mean, not at the Supremes, but everywhere else. So I have a high degree of confidence, I would say, that you're going to be able to vote. Now, you might have to, dot every I and cross every T, and you got to get it right, and you got to come in with the right ID, and don't trust the mail-in ballots at this moment. You might have to wait in line just to be sure, or use drop boxes. But no, I do have a reasonably a fair thing. Guys, I'm dead here. So if you got questions, put them in the chat up on my screen. Okay, let me move to 86-47. So how do I put this nicely? The Trump Department of Justice should 86 the indictment against James Comey. Okay? Because we just had a federal judge, Randy Moss, in the protection of a group that, and I love these groups, and it's a shout out to these groups. It's a group that's been camped out in front of a courthouse in DC on Constitution Avenue, like since the Trump administration started. And all they want is for the impeachment of Donald Trump. And they engage in First Amendment speech, and they don't have a noose hanging or a guillotine. Just want to have a conversation in the public square of ideas, right? Literally. And they had their permit pulled by a combination of the Park Service and Secret Service because they put up an 8647 flag that they got on Amazon. They actually went over and interrogated with Miranda rights one of the volunteers there about, well, that could be interpreted as a threat against the president. And she's like, what, the flag? Like, I think it means remove. I think it means impeach. And so they ran in on a First Amendment lawsuit to argue to a federal judge in DC, Judge Randy Moss, that we have a First Amendment right to engage in discussions about impeachment and certainly to fly the flag. And he agreed. He went through a whole, we have it up on, as long as my assistant did it right, we have it up on Legal AF Substack under Filings AF. Alan, did we get it up? Okay. And there you can read it for yourself. The judge said, look, there's two important principles in our democracy. One is freedom of speech, especially political speech, in the public square, literally. And we don't like when you make death threats against government officials. And and context matters. Judge Moss said context matters. Something that could be sort of innocent, like this particular flag, or I don't know, seashells on a beach, takes on a more menacing tone if, I don't know, if it's like upside down, like Mrs. Alito's flag that she flew in front of the house of a Supreme Court justice, or if it's got a noose on it, or, like a target, or some sort of crosshairs, all right. Well, or they're also screaming like they were. I don't know, where did I last see people in Washington screaming for the scalp of elected officials and to hang them? And they brought a noose and a guillotine. Oh, right, Jan 6th. The insurrectionist that Todd Blanche wants to give cash to in retirement funds. Right. Context matters. See, if they're flying a, I don't know, 8646 with a murderous hue and cry, with makeshift weapons, I think it takes on a slightly different context, don't you? So the judge is allowing them to have the flag, finding, as I have said before, that 86 is a slang term that came out of 1930s, a soda jerk, a lunch counter in pharmacies, diner talk, for when you're out of something. When I worked in a diner, when I studied for the bar, oh, yes, I did, on the Jersey Shore. Shout out to the late Starbright Diner. And in the back of the house, the kitchen told me 86 the tuna salad. I did not think the tuna salad was being taken out in the back and assassinated. I thought it meant we were out of tuna salad, and remove it from your specials for the day, like that. And that's what the judge said. He said Merriam-Webster says it came from and context matters. And this is going to help James Comey because he's arguing, or will be arguing, in the North Carolina federal court that he has a First Amendment right to post on social media seashells arranged 8647 and be able to write at the bottom, interesting seashell formation I came across today on my vacation. Death threat to the president? A true threat, as Judge Moss wrote? Really? Even Donald Trump, who was interviewed by Caitlin Collins, didn't think that was a death threat. And so this will help reinforce this ruling will help reinforce and help the Comey team. And they'll be moving for a motion for vindictive prosecution as well. that successful motion for vindictive prosecution entered into on the 22nd of May by Judge Crenshaw in Middle District of Tennessee will go down in history as the first, but certainly not the last, order against this Department of Justice. That's going to be another stain of many indelible stains on the hands of Todd Blanche and Pam Bondi before him. We're going to be talking about dozens of motions for vindictive prosecution, dozens of motions to obtain grand jury transcripts, like Don Lemon, our friend, is doing in his case in Minnesota. You can count on no hands and no fingers the amount of time in my career I've been involved with a motion to obtain the grand jury transcript that was successful, or a motion for vindictive prosecution. And yet here we are. I barely learned the emoluments clause in constitutional law class in law school, and now it's on the top of mind, and that's just the Trump era that we're in. So that was a good thing on 8647. And now I want to touch on the ballroom. I think we have pictures for this next one. Ballroom oral argument, everybody. Two different courts involved. Judge Leon below in the district court level. He already blocked, but that block was blocked, the continued construction of the ballroom. The appellate court, 3 judges, 2 not Trumpers, 1 Trumper, set oral argument after full briefing for this Friday, which will be up on a live tab on Legal AF YouTube, and I'll do the pregame show for it as well, just about 15 minutes before it. I think you'll find it fascinating. We'll know right away where that court is. In the meantime, Trump just filed his last brief, and the lawyers had a wallpaper over the fact that Mr. Dementia, Captain Dementia, decided it was a good thing to tell the world about all of the security features that are being built into the ballroom. We learned, for instance, there's multiple hospitals. It has an S on it. Multiple military installations. Then there's a drone depot on the top. Do we have the photos? A drone depot on the top of the ballroom. I think we're going to look at this. This is AI generated, by the way. This is what Donald Trump wants you to. There, isn't that nice? On 4th of July, they're ready to launch. Why do I need to see this? More importantly, why does our enemy need to see it? At one point in their filing, not only did they have to say the president, as you know, was forced into what? Having AI generated photos that he's bragging about on the anniversary about what his paramilitary unit's going to look like on the top of the ballroom. They always want to exploit an assassination attempt. The guy that shot off the gun in front of the White House and shot, I don't know if it killed, but definitely shot an innocent bystander. That was another assassination attempt that calls for the ballroom. Why? Because they would have whisked the president into the ballroom. I don't understand. I don't understand how this ballroom is going to work. This is like the black box on a plane. Everyone always jokes, well, why don't they just build the plane out of the thing the black box is built out of? Because that always survives. So I don't get it. We're just going to move operations into the ballroom? I just don't understand this entire line of argument. And this is, again, Donald Trump, somebody telling Donald Trump, like his lawyers, that the ballroom thing's not working. The thing where you told the American people that women in their high heels don't like to get their high heels caught in the grass, so we need a ballroom? That's not working. Forget that, boss. Make this a military industrial complex with a hospital underneath it, and it's all knitted together in one secure facility, and you're the commander-in-chief. Go with that argument. So they had to flip it and change course with what they were doing there. So the oral argument is coming up. The lawyers for the National Trust are like, look, this is relatively simple. I don't know about these AI photos or generated photos, but he doesn't have the ability to demolish the White House or any part of it. We should count ourselves lucky that he didn't decide that the White House was a shithole and it needed to be completely knocked over. He could have. He used to call it that. He used to compare it to Trump Tower. Oh, it's so shabby. He could have knocked the whole thing over. He'd be living out of a trailer on the White House grounds. Well, I'm allowed to remodel. I'm allowed to do alterations. And my idea of an alteration is I take down the White House. He took down a third of it. They keep calling it the East Wing remodeling project as if the East Wing is still there. You know, it's like when you remodel your basement, you don't demolish your basement or your house as part of the remodeling. So I think the arguments about separation of powers, about not letting Donald Trump claim that he's self-funding it, but then taking money from the public without congressional approval. Look, it sits in a federal park. It's federal property. It's the people's house. It's run and controlled by Congress. And the president, this president himself, when he moved a fence in 2017, went to Congress for approval. That was for a fence. So I think you're going to want to tune in to hear how this panel handles the ballroom. We'll know right away. Of course, it'll go right up to the United States Supreme Court, but, you know, that'll be a summer event. Let me go through a couple of, I'll take a swig of water here. I got a little dry mouth. I think we got new questions that are up. Let's see. I'm looking through questions. Sorry, folks. Lynn Hager says, what do you think the best strategy would be to deal with SCOTUS? I like Jamie Raskin's idea. Jamie Raskin's idea is we have to add 4 more seats, preferably when a Democrat wins. Got to add 4 more seats. I like his theory. There's 13 federal circuits, should be 13 Supreme Court justices. Sort of makes sense. Let's add 4. That'll make it a 7-6 majority, not MAGA. I like it. Look, the number of Supreme Court justices has fluctuated over the years. 6, 12, now current 9. It's not set. You can spend all night looking through your copy of the United States Constitution. You're not going to find a number in there for how many seats. It doesn't exist. That's set by Congress. And I think we're done with the niceties of, you know, when Joe Biden was in office. Let's have a blue ribbon panel. F that. F that. Let's have a bill that becomes a law. How about that? You know, the last time a president threatened or a Congress threatened the Supreme Court with court packing, it was called court packing back then, was FDR, when the Supreme Court, very, very conservative and not Democrats, were against his New Deal to save America from the Great Depression. He made a couple of threats. They saw he was serious, and suddenly they started approving his bills. You know, they're political creatures too, I assure you. So I like that. Short of that, the Democrats got to get control of the Senate to make sure that the next couple of Supreme Court justices aren't extreme. That's the best that we can do. And then lastly, what ramifications could there be from recent reporting about Alito's son working for the Treasury Department? Yeah, it's a problem. I had Judge Alito on. I had Judge Ludig on, and I asked him about that, and he said it's terrible. That should have been disclosed to the American people. Should have been disclosed by Alito. There should have been recusals or disqualifications as a result of it. And that's the story. That is the story. So I'm really glad that everybody's here at the intersection Tuesday night live. Tomorrow night, midweek edition of Legal AF. Saturday, the midweek edition of Legal AF. Support what we do. If you like what we do, and I think you do, you're here with us, is come over to the Legal AF YouTube channel. Again, I wouldn't ask you for a subscriber, your thumb to subscribe and become a member for free if we didn't need it. So obviously we need it because I'm asking for it. So the personal favor, go over there now. And if you think you are, you're probably not. I mean, I can't remember everything I'm subscribed to, and I like lots of people on YouTube, but go check now. And then Legal AF Substack, that's a fun place. If you don't know Substack, join it and join Legal AF. If you're a Substacker, you're going to love Legal AF and the content we have there. Essays that I write every day along with our other contributors, a live report I do every day. and all of that. So I'm so glad everybody's here on The Intersection. Support us, leave 5-star reviews and comments, and also tell people about this YouTube so that we keep us at the top of the rankings. All because of you. Your generosity of time, of money, of commitment is overwhelming. Appreciate each and every one of you. I can't tell you how thrilled I am when I get the opportunity to meet legal AFers and intersectionists on the streets, and I do often, and it's the highlight of my day and that of my families. I really do appreciate that. So until my next time together with you next Tuesday, this is Michael Popok, and a shout out to the Mighty Mighty, the legal AFers, and the intersectionists. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.